Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, Purple Daily on draft every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Training camp underway. Go find Judd's camp notes on this podcast feed and YouTube channel. Stick around here for a draft approach and approach at the rookies, the UDFA class, etc. Miles Gorham, Tyler Fornes, Declan Goff here on Purple Daily on draft, of course. And right before we crack the mics, we got a little Schefter bomb. The Vikings will be adding defensive back Bobby McCain. McCain has played in 131 games. He's a veteran. He started out as a corner. He has played more safety in the last few years. He played for Brian Flores with the Miami Dolphins. Your guys' initial thoughts. Forno, I'll start with you. Bobby McCain. The Vikings needed a damn body in the room, obviously. The position's very thin and whatnot, but what do you think of Bobby McCain being added here for the Vikings?
He's been a solid and versatile player throughout his career. Last year, he did only play 19 snaps for the New York Giants. I don't know how much of that was potentially injury related because 3 came in week 2 and 16 came in week 10, or how much of that was, hey, maybe he's washed. He's about to turn 31 years old here on the 18th of August. Like sometimes corners just kind of phase out really quickly because of the athleticism and just how tough the position is to play. But it's also should be kind of noted that he's also like almost like a slot safety. My impression of him is he's an archetype of Javon Holland, where you don't necessarily want him on the outside. You want him doing a lot of those kind of multiple things. And I think it's worth a shot, especially if it's just a vet minimum contract with no guarantees and no signing bonus. See what he's got. He only played 1 season for Flores 2020, 923 snaps, PFF grade of 62.1. They did use him a little bit in pass rush, obviously, because blitzing got 5 pressures. But look, it's a dart throw, and at the absolute worst, it's a camp body, which you need at the position right now, especially after you lost 2 cornerbacks in the month of July for the 2024 season and beyond. And then Shaq Griffin went down with a lower leg injury. I believe it was an ankle. But sounds like if it was a game week, he'd be fine. So, yeah, it's a very low risk, potentially decent reward signing.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before the mic, crack the mics, Miles, too, that obviously, you know, with them being depleted with injuries, Andrew Booth, who got run, I believe, with the first team over the weekend, but it didn't really go too well.
Because he had to.
Because it cooked all over the place, and there's legit only so many bodies out there. Bobby McCain, nice little veteran here. I mean, I don't even think this is like a guarantee he makes the roster. Now, the Vikings need so many positions at cornerback, so he might be defaulted to make it, but just a nice addition because the Vikings obviously need some type of capable veterans in that room.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest issue here is like you said, they're running out of bodies, like injuries and obviously tragedies. They've all happened. We were talking before the show too, and like again, this was a tragedy, but the Vikings went from a 6'3" corner in Kyrie Jackson to a 5'8", 5'9" corner in Duke Shelley. And like that room just went from like with Mekhi Blackman and Kyrie Jackson from like a room that you're like, okay, there's potential for some guys to like stick and be long-term solutions to this might with like potential for the year. This is a room that's like depleted and probably one of arguably your worst position group now. And that's really tough. And I think what McCain does is it brings familiarity. It looks like he played with Brian Flores in 19 and 20 in Miami. If I'm not mistaken. So like there's that familiarity, but he played more safety and nickel in that role. So that's why I feel like this leads me to believe that Byron Murphy might play more outside just due to necessity. Obviously, I think they'd prefer him in the nickel, but when you lose guys and you have situations where you have a familiarity with Bobby McCain with Brian Flores, I think this just allows another guy in the room that knows the defense so he can get up to speed a little bit quicker than maybe some guys that don't know the defense. And so it might lean to more opportunities for him to get on the field earlier. And again, keeping guys like Shaq Griffin and Byron Murphy on the outside with Andrew Booth and Caleb Evans kind of sprinkled in. But they don't really have like the nickel depth. Like, you have Byron Murphy Jr., again, that necessity to play outside. But then you have Josh Metellus, who they're saying they want to gain a little bit of weight and play a little more of that true linebacker role, which obviously he'll still play nickel. But like what that role looks like, we don't fully know. So it sounds like they just need guys, to fill some of those positions. And again, position flexibility and scheme familiarity is always important in these situations when it's, obviously isn't week one, but you like guys to be able to come in and hit the ground running like Bobby McCain might be able to do. So I just think that's an opportunity there. But yeah, they're real thin at outside corner with not a lot of potential anymore, and they don't have a lot of size on the outside. Shaq Griffin's your biggest corner now with the Caleb Evans, and Caleb Evans has kind of not really shown much, and Andrew Booth's kind of been a guy who just seems to be declining. So I'm not sure what's going on, but they need something to really stick this during camp here.
Looking at the other internal options too here for now, obviously Bobby McCain is a body in the room. It's great. He's got experience. He knows Flores' defense, at least some of the schemes and stuff from playing with him before. But what does this mean for the other internal guys on the roster? Like, what does this mean for Jay Ward? What does this mean for guys like UDFAs like Dwight McLaughlin, who obviously is trying to crawl up and make a spot too? What does this mean for some of the other internal options that the Vikings have invested in with draft picks, UDFAs, etc.?
I really think the Vikings might be trying Jay Ward out of cornerback, and I don't know 100%. There hasn't been any real indication that they want to try him out of corner, but there's a blueprint there, and you can go back to his senior year at LSU. So he played a total of 704 snaps across all units. He played 108 snaps in the box, 230 in the slot, 178 at wide corner, and 105 at free safety. So he spent more time playing corner than he did safety during his final year at LSU. He also played 13 snaps on the D-line, which is absolutely perfect for Brian Flores because of how he likes to utilize blitz packages. But the idea of, giving Ward a chance at outside corner or even in the slot gives you more versatility, more options. And then it could potentially give Lewis Cine more opportunities to either make the team or show enough so you can trade him towards the end of training camp. You got to try something, and you got to have bodies. This is an opportunity for Ward to be able to show he can do more and get on the field. With where the cornerback room sits, like personally, my theory is Quasito Fomensa doesn't view cornerback as a true premium position because of how volatile it is. It's great to have an elite corner on the outside, but as long as you don't have anybody that stinks, that's arguably better than having like one really elite guy and then a bunch of like question marks. So I think we'll find out long term kind of how he truly views the position. But after the first 3 years, he's put assets into the position, but never anything truly high end. Like pick 42 is a good asset. It's not a truly like, if you're talking about premium assets, it's not a first round pick. And then a third and 2 fourths, like he's trying, but he's not saying, hey, I need an alpha in that room to be dominant. The most expensive cornerback is a cap hit of like $10.8 million with Byron Murphy Jr. Good player, but you're not talking about him like he's a Sauce Gardner or a Pat Surtain II. So if things had played out a little bit differently with the cornerback room as far as availability going into the season, I think we might have a much more positive view, but we have to kind of roll with the punches here. And I don't necessarily see them making a big splash because of that. And to kind of wrap this whole thing up in a bow, having a guy like Ward who can potentially play on the outside or play in the slot, because he's got the size. He's 6'1", 188, according to Pro Football Focus's internal data. I don't have the Vikings roster page up in front of me, but if he plays well enough with how Flores likes to play, I think they'd be okay not necessarily going to the outside and bring in like a super high profile guy.
Miles, it feels like there's like a bunch of Josh Metellus with now, bringing in Bobby McCain. It feels like it's versatility. And I don't know if like positions and players are just kind of morphing like that. Metellus is a freak of nature who can play like all these positions, and that's probably more rare than it is the norm. But how also important is it for these guys in the Flores defense who Flores likes to use them in all different positions and areas and blitz packages, etc.? I guess how big is the versatility for guys like Jay Ward to, float between being a safety or a cornerback, or same thing with Bobby McCain? It feels like he really values versatility almost over than a guy just who is a straight line position player.
Yeah, I feel like this is a lot like Mike Zimmer, what we saw with Mike Zimmer, especially the latter part of his tenure in Minnesota. It was like he had his core guys in place, obviously, in Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes and Terrence Newman, like a few of those guys. But as they started to add outside that group, as Zimmer was here, it was more of those versatile guys like Mike Hughes, Mackenzie Alexander, like guys like that. They wanted that versatility because I think obviously I'm not saying all these guys worked out, but I think what you're getting to is, Declan, is like these guys allow you flexibility to play multiple positions, and in a defense that's complex, requires a lot of communication, a lot of pattern matching, but also like cross coverage units. Defensive, like one side of the defense might be playing man, one might be playing zone. Like they do a lot of those cross coverages like that within a Brian Flores defense, kind of like a Mike Zimmer. Like I know it's not the same blueprint as a Mike Zimmer defense, but that versatility is important to what you're saying in both these defenses. And I think that's what they're looking for out of these guys, is guys that can be versatile, because we see if injuries happen, if guys aren't playing well, like we need guys to be able to play multiple positions. Not one position is just like fixed for a guy. Like obviously you have guys like Shaq Griffin, you'd prefer to stay on the outside. And I think in an ideal world, they'd like Brian Murphy to stay on the inside. But in situations like this, when injuries and tragedies happen, you have to be able to be flexible and have that versatility. And that's why I think that versatility from these guys is so important to what they're looking for, because of those situations, like especially depth pieces, guys that aren't starters. You have to have that versatility, because like we talk about the offensive linemen, if you're not starting, you have to be able to play multiple positions, because you never know when a guy's going to get hurt or something's going to happen and you're going to have to go plug in somewhere. You have to know all the different roles. And it just allows you to be more, allows coaches to trust you more in these situations. Like if you're a guy that just only can play one position, then it's hard for a coach to want to put you in the game, because he's like, okay, well, yeah, you can play this one position, okay, like as a depth piece, but if you can't play all of my other positions and I can't trust you in other areas, then like I'm going to put the guy that's behind you that might not be quite as good, but he knows my defense better than you at all these positions. So he might see the field more than that guy for some of these situations. So trust in a lot of that is important from coaching. And so I think that really matters. And so with that versatility comes trust and guys that can play multiple positions, which we saw Josh Metellus earned that trust really quickly last year. Who's going to be that next guy this year? Like I would guarantee another guy. Maybe it is Jay Ward. Maybe one of these other guys that they brought in these last couple of years can really earn that trust. I feel like Mekhi Blackman was on his way to that too as well, but obviously he's hurt now. But who's going to be that next guy to really step up and earn that trust from Brian Flores?
Does it give you any, I guess, not bailout plan for, no, that's not the word I'm looking for, but little extra insurance knowing that the Vikings safety room, even with a veteran like Harrison Smith, who's up there in age, but with Cam Bynum, Theo Jackson, who actually has kind of turned some heads here early in training camp, does it give you any more insurance knowing like, all right, at least the Vikings safety guys over the top can maybe help out those inexperienced corners? Or is this, I know the defense is just going to be like a trickle-down effect, because if the pass rush doesn't get home, then the cornerbacks are going to get exposed, and then you're probably just, you're bleeped no matter what. But does it give you any more assurance knowing that, hey, the Vikings safety is actually, it's probably one of their more deeper positions and we're not giving it enough credit, and can they kind of help out those inexperienced or just a very thin cornerback room?
Yeah, I think having a great safety room is a huge benefit. And one intriguing element that I don't think we've talked about is, can Bynum play corner in college? Do they try to get really creative with some of those formations? And I see Miles shaking his head. I get it. Like
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Bynum ran a 4.6. There's a reason why he's playing safety. And I'm not talking about on like a more permanent basis, but maybe they do like some rotations and have him, and maybe that's part of the new wrinkle where they try to be really confusing.
Is he covering running backs and tight ends in these situations? Because then we can have a different conversation.
I think it would be more like inverted Tampa 2 kind of stuff.
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. Yeah,
rather than man-on-man coverage, because that's why Cam Bynum is playing safety. Because if he ran a 4.49, that dude's probably playing outside corner in the league and probably pretty good, because all the mental stuff he's got down pat.
He's become a really good safety too, by the way. Like as we're talking about him, like no slouch to him being not being able to play outside corner. He's become a really good safety.
That's why corners with lesser athleticism transition very well to safety, especially those who are really intelligent, and that's what Bynum has showed throughout the entire time he's been in the National Football League. So, like, I'm really intrigued to kind of see what they do. I'm not going to panic, but having that safety depth and the ability to have multiple guys back there to be multiple with and be able to shift down into the slot and blitz and be able to prevent stuff from happening behind them, I think is going to be a good thing in helping those corners maybe take a little bit of a pressure off of them.
I will say real quick too to wrap. I don't know if we want to talk about what we're gonna segue into the next topic, but I feel like I'd kind of mentioned it earlier about how small they've gotten at corner now. Like it's kind of weird. I only say that because like all offseason, I felt like their goal was to get bigger on the outside. Shaq Griffin, Kyrie Jackson. Again, we know the Kyrie Jackson situation, so that's like unfortunate tragedies. But after those moves, they've since like to rectify. They've since kind of gotten smaller. So I'm just a little surprised that like instead of like trying to sign an outside press man corner who's a little bit bigger. I think Akila Witherspoon has been someone that's been linked. Maybe even like a Stephon Gilmore. Like some of these guys, they haven't gone after those guys. They've gone after Duke Shelley's, Bobby McCain's, and some of these smaller guys. So I'm just a little surprised just based off what they're doing in the offseason, like to where they've like pivoted now. And maybe that is just a little bit more of that versatility you've mentioned, Declan. But I'm just a little surprised that we haven't seen another outside corner, even if it was with a little bit more guaranteed money than a guaranteed. Bobby McCain's probably not getting any guaranteed money right now, but a guy that is looking for a little bit more guaranteed money, but someone that can help solidify the room a little bit more and stabilize it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Let's go to the offense here and what we learned from the quarterback battle. But a quick shout out. It is it's a giving week here at Score North, and every year we've partnered with our friends at Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute, benefiting some great causes. You can go right now to scorenorth.com/auction. In fact, it's in the YouTube bio link right now. You can bid on some great packages, including Vikings tickets, including dinner with the Purple Daily crew, tickets to the Twins, to the Wild, to Minnesota United, anything just to donate as well. It obviously helps out. So go help out our friends with Courage Kenny. We appreciate you guys, everyone. Every time we've asked the Purple Daily audience to give, you guys have always shown up, so we appreciate that. So go support an amazing cause. On the offensive front, so Judd is obviously, he's been charting throws. He's not NFL GSIS out there, but he's doing his absolute best to try to do so. And he brought up this point, and I want to run it by you guys first before I even get into some of the charting throws that Judd was able to chart. He thinks JJ McCarthy, this is not necessarily a battle of JJ McCarthy trying to take the starting job from Sam Darnold. So it's not McCarthy v. Darnold. It's more McCarthy v. McCarthy. It's more, can McCarthy show up against himself and kind of prove some things wrong? Can he take steps forward in his development? I guess, Forno, would you agree that's more of an accurate battle with McCarthy? It's maybe more of a battle within himself than it is a battle with Sam Darnold to be the starting quarterback in week one.
I think I've said that exact thing on this very show, Declan. Mm-hmm. And I think the line that they gave in the pressers this past week when McCarthy spoke to the media, the process is the progress. Mm-hmm. I think that tells you everything you need to know. It's not going to be about beating out Darnold. Now, he very well could. That's something to really take into consideration. It's not a 0% chance that happens. It's all about how is McCarthy going to handle adversity? How is he going to handle making mistakes? Because you know what? I hope he makes a lot of mistakes during training camp. Why? Mistakes are lessons. When you make a mistake and you throw an interception, okay, why did it happen? Why did you throw this ball? Why did you not see this player? Or, hey, was it a good throw and the receiver just made a goof? Like, let's try and figure out the why behind it so then we can fix it and then it doesn't happen next time. There's so many different things. And one story that I like to relate back to, quarterbacks love watching film. Quarterbacks have an understanding of what the opposing defense is going to do. And there's a time where Ed Reed talked about picking off Peyton Manning, where he intentionally botched coverages throughout the season so Manning would see it, so then he could pick him off. And he did. And he showed, hey, when they, I think it was a play action, he drifts over to towards the middle of the field, and then it leaves Reggie Wayne theoretically open, and then he flips his hips and darts and gets the interception, and Peyton Manning is freaking out like, what in the world just happened? Like, that's not how this is supposed to go. Like, watching film and understanding how those mistakes get made is important. And Manning was so flustered because Reed baited him. And that was the lesson learned there. So how is McCarthy going to be able to see all those other things? How is he going to handle throwing 5 interceptions in a practice? Let's be real. He very well could. Like, Mahomes has done it. You throw interceptions in practice, you don't throw them in games, because that's where you test out, hey, what can I get away with? Can I fit this ball into this window? Or is it a suicide mission? Can I do this? Can I do that? And that's how you learn. And how McCarthy handles that, along with handling that failure and adapting to it, I think is going to be really, really important. And Darnold too. Darnold is learning chemistry with these receivers. He is getting absolutely bombarded by this Brian Flores defense, who on McCarthy's first play sent the house.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of thing we're dealing with. And defense is always better than offense early on in camp. Don't panic over little things. Let the process play out. Let's see how trends form rather than how each individual throw being scrutinized. When the games come, then we can start to scrutinize. But right now, let them figure it out, because they're both trying to figure out how to play for this organization.
So, Miles, what is your take as even a former football player yourself, of like defense is showing everything and going right at it to start like camp or to start things right away? Like I know B-Flow was able to do that against Kevin O'Connell. And I'm sure there's even some times where, yes, in the long run, it's probably beneficial, but I'm sure KOC's also like, can you go easy here as this brand new guy enters my system and is learning all these code words and playbooks and everything as it is, and you're just going to send 7 different guys from all different angles at him? I guess what is your kind of take at Brian Flores kind of basically throwing the entire kitchen sink early in training camp at these young quarterbacks?
I love it. I think it's important for the defenses in training camp to set the tone. I think that just brings out the rest of the competition, because if offense is just cooking the defense, it makes it harder to improve on offense, in my opinion. So like when the defense is showing different formations, different blitz packages, and all different coverages, I think it's important. I also think when we talk about guys like, especially Sam Darnold's seen more on the field. Obviously, he's played in NFL games, been a starter. He's seen more of what defenses can do, but JJ McCarthy hasn't. And so what's important here is it's all teach tape. It's all opportunity for JJ McCarthy to see what, like, teams aren't going to take it easy on him in games or in the preseason. Like, yeah, maybe a little bit vanilla in some preseason games, but they're still not going to take it easy on him. And like, if he gets into a game in the regular season, he's going to have to learn and understand it. So what he can do is, if you can see a strong defensive coordinator like Brian Flores throw the kitchen sink at you, that just should help you in games, because other defenses are going to throw the kitchen sink at you. So how you handle it now, how you progress through it, how you work through it in the meeting rooms and, in the film room is really important, because yeah, he might make mistakes. That's okay. The mistakes are going to come, but how does he answer those mistakes? How does he come back like the next day or the next week, from some of those mistakes of what he's seen and hasn't seen before, and bounce back from it? I just think and what does he already know? So what does he recognize really well within what a defense is going to do, and what he doesn't, in terms of like what checks he needs to make, what responsibilities he's willing to take on right now, what he's ready to take on, his chemistry with the receivers, like we talked about, and running backs, and how he calls out pass pro and things like that is all really important, because whether it's week 1, week 6, whatever timing JJ McCarthy is going to play for the Minnesota Vikings, it's important that he sees a lot of this work now, so that when he goes into a game, there's less surprises. And it's okay. Again, those mistakes are going to come, and they're going to come in real games too. But it's okay that they come now, and it's good that he's seeing them now, so that there's less surprises come game day. And when defenses can set the tone like that, it's supposed to make the games a little bit easier, because you're less surprised by things. Obviously, there's no game planning right now. There's no situations where you have a book on people. It's just kind of like playing the same. And I think that's what Brian Flores is trying to do, is like, we see these guys every day. So we throw the same thing at them every day, they're just going to carve us up.
Yeah.
So them being adjusting on defense, and that communication and that work helps them as well, because then they can roll their coverages and change the communications up and make it harder on the offense. And when it's hard on the offense, and the defense again can set that tone, I just think it's better for everybody. So it just creates a lot more learning opportunities, a lot more like better communication across the entire team.
4-0, are we too invested in the Sam Darnold deep ball? Because all I keep seeing is Sam Darnold just dropping dimes apparently to Jordan Addison. I haven't been at practice. Judd's obviously been there. I've seen the reports. I've seen even some of the highlights that the Vikings Twitter has put out. But the deep ball for Sam Darnold, did we always know that ability was there? Is just training camp, having extra time, and floating one down the middle? What do we make, and what do we overreact to with the Sam Darnold deep balls early on in Vikings training camp?
Well, I'll be able to give you a better synopsis next week, because I'll be at training camp 4 days here this week.
Nice.
So it's really tough, because training camp, you should be able to throw dimes. You should be able to do a lot of those things. Talent has never been the question with Sam Darnold. It's never been about his talent. It's been about harnessing it and being able to play within himself, being able to make smart decisions and not panic under pressure and making sure that he's always doing the right thing. Those are the issues. It's never been arm talent. He can zip it. And even when he was with the Jets, there were plays where he was able to zip it. There's one that always comes to mind. He's rolling out to his left, and then he kind of throws across his body for a dime, and it was like a 40-yard touchdown. Like, he could do that kind of stuff. His time at USC. I always say that the Rose Bowl, January 1st of 2017, is the reason why he got taken in the top 3, because he went to war with Penn State and came out on top 52-49. If you haven't seen the game, I recommend you go watch it. It's one of the greatest college football games the last 25 years. But you should be able to allow that talent to show during training camp. Now, once you put the pads on, which is later on this afternoon, how is that going to change? Because you're going to have an actual pass rush now. You're going to have cornerbacks being able to really get up into receivers' faces. How are you going to respond to those things? And I think that's really going to show, can Darnold be the guy? I'm not going to overreact to a couple deep bomb touchdowns. Yeah, they rock. They're fun. It's fun to get hyped and excited. But in reality, yeah, it's great to hit a couple deep balls, but you got to be able to hit the intermediate stuff more than you got to hit deep balls. So let's see how he does with the full pads on. Let's see how he grows throughout camp, because with Darnold, it's going to be similar to McCarthy. It's not about now. It's about how are you different from now in 3 weeks? And can you keep growing and adapting? There's a world where he's the next Geno Smith. There's a world where JJ McCarthy starts in week 5 because Darnold is bad. We don't know yet. And it's going to be a fun journey to kind of see what he can be, because I'll tell you, with these quarterback contracts now, having a middle class quarterback signing can be incredibly valuable. Because let's put it this way, Darnold plus Hawkinson plus Jefferson is about the same as what Jordan Love is making. Yeah. Give or take a couple $1 million, but it's bonkers. So if you can hit on a guy like Darnold, it's a massive benefit for your franchise.
Better contract for their team, Tua's with Miami or Jordan Love with the Packers?
Tua.
Jordan Love.
Tua.
Oh.
Here's my argument. Tua is an incredible fit for how Miami wants to run their offense. Plus, we understand what Tua is. He's got 3.5, 4 years of starting experience. Jordan Love has 9 good games. It's a lot more of a risky contract, but I'll tell you, if he trends in the proper direction, which is what the Packers believe he's going to be, and a lot of analysts do, Jordan Love could easily be a value at that contract within 2 years. It's just a lot more volatile than what the Dolphins have, because the Dolphins know what they have.
Yeah, but I just don't think – I think the upside and the tools and abilities that you have from Jordan Love, that Sky is top 5 quarterback in the league, whereas Tua, that's not going to be his ceiling. Like, that's okay. We know, like, that offense helps propel him. And I think Tua is a good quarterback. I think he actually gets underrated by how well he's played. But he's also, like, there's a cap to, like, how well he's going to play and how well he's going to really push the rest of his team. Whereas I think, like, what we talk about the truck versus trailer, like who's the puller, who's the guy that gets pulled. I think Tua is a little bit more of a gets pulled, whereas I think Jordan Love has a chance to really be the puller, the guy that moves that needle because of everything he can do and everything we saw that last half of the season last year. And what we've learned is, like, if they expect Jordan Love to be I'm not gonna say MVP, but like that type of quality player moving forward. So they know that if they wait, that's just going to get even more expensive. So they'd rather lock that in now because they expect what they see moving forward is going to be better. Whereas I think the Dolphins are paying for what they know Tua is going to be. They know what that consistency is going to be, and they're paying for it. I think there's some of that, like Kirk Cousins, to it. Like, what you're getting, and so you're going to pay for it. You might have to pay top dollar for it, but like you know what the baseline is. Whereas I think Jordan Love, like you said, like there's a chance for that to really be an underrated contract, because if he pans out to be that top 5 quarterback, it's worth it. And it's like probably an underpay at that point.
And I think the words that you used, there's a chance.
Yes, of course. It's not a guarantee. Yeah. Nothing's a guarantee.
And to me, that's the problem I have that's the problem I have with the contract. There's a chance. If you're wrong, it's catastrophic. Now,
but they can't let him go either.
I don't disagree, but you have the franchise tag and you have the ability to keep him.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you have to give him another $5 million a year just to make sure you're not wrong, I'm fine with that.
Have we seen the structure of his contract? I don't know if I've looked.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Is it pretty strong?
Pretty concrete.
Okay.
$75 million signing bonus, the highest in NFL history.
That's crazy.
And
who's paying for that? The people of Green Bay. No, I'm just playing.
I don't know. I wouldn't have signed him that deal, but at the end of the day, it could be a massive payout for the Packers. It's just volatile.
Yeah. Well, and like to your point, like it could, 54 million, 54 million, 53 million, 55 million. If it gets a deal done and they feel strongly about it, like they've had enough of a sample size. I trust their coach too. Like I trust Kevin O'Connell. I trust Matt LaFleur. And I don't think he signs off on that if he wasn't confident in what they expect from Jordan Love moving forward too. And I think that's important here. And I don't want that to happen. We're a Viking show. Like we're Vikings fans. I don't want Jordan Love. I don't want this to be another 10 plus years of them having an elite Hall of Fame level quarterback.
Yeah.
But they might. And I think, I don't think they signed him to that if they didn't feel confident enough in what they believe him to be.
Yeah. At least the Vikings have Sam Darnold under 1-year contract. We don't have to worry about paying a quarterback, even though if things pan out, we're talking about a $200 million quarterback in 4 years that we have to deal with. So we'll cross that bridge.
Hey, we didn't even talk about Jalen Naylor, by the way, because we talked a lot about wide receiver 3 real quick. Like we talked a lot about wide receiver 3 heading into the training camp, and I think we know the pads are an important part of this because I think the one thing people don't realize is how heavy that first day of pads kind of feels. It kind of feels like when you're running in just a helmet, you feel so light as a feather. You feel like you can run for days. You throw those shoulder pads on, you kind of get that okay, it gets serious. It's a little bit more okay, this is actual football now. And obviously Jalen Naylor's been around the block, so this isn't his first show. But if he can stay healthy, he's showing that being that wide receiver 3 and that guy that can play inside and out and be that versatile third piece is really important for what this offense needs. Mm-hmm. If he can be that guy, I think, and what he's shown early in camp is important. So I just think that just goes a long way. It creates less needs going into the regular season because you know how cuts, guys, they'll go after, maybe they'll go after another cornerback during cutdowns, whatever, another D lineman, we'll see, offensive lineman, whatever position they feel that they need in those situations. If they don't need that receiver as much, that's huge because that's just less needs that they'll have going into week 1, which is important. The more internal guys that they have right now that can be contributors, the better. So hopefully this can continue to last for Jalen Naylor.
Yeah, let's see if he can stay healthy for another 7 days, and we'll visit next week.
For sure.
Last year, on the first day of camp, it didn't pop back up until October.
Right.
So I'm keeping Jalen Naylor at arm's length. The idea is great. Let's see what the reality becomes because right now the reality is murky.
Yeah, we'll have more updates too. Obviously, camp battles as they progress. Fornell's going to be there at training camp, obviously, this week. So we'll have plenty of notes. Fornell will come locked and loaded. Can't wait for next week's Purple Daily on draft. So hit the like button and subscribe button. Plenty of camp updates coming at you. This is Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die.